Right, hello guys, and welcome back to another entry of the Forever Build series, the place where we cover absolutely perfect builds, factoring in set bonuses, stat distributions, optimal subclass makeup, weapon choices, and everything in between, making them the best versions of what they could possibly be, and thus being this way forever because the game isn't receiving any more major sandbox updates. You could be watching this build within the first week of upload or even 3 to 4 years down the line, and it will still be just as dominant as it was the moment it was put together. And today we are continuing with a Prismatic Titan build that brings together the strongest aspects of the kit alongside a classic weapon that we're buffing the hell out of to deal maximum damage, 180% extra to be exact, encouraging an incredibly satisfying gameplay loop. So if you enjoyed today's content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, but without further ado, let's get into it. So first of all, I want to discuss the key themes of today's build, and that is bringing everything that's good about Prismatic Titan in terms of abilities and pairing that with a classic weapon that is going to make the gameplay loop just so much fun and incredibly enjoyable to play. And I'm going to start by telling you a story. Way back in the Final Shape expansion in 2024, which is now over 2 years old, which is very crazy to say, Bungie released the exotic auto rifle Khvostov 7GOX, and it didn't take long for this to become one of my absolute favorite exotic weapons in the game. It felt incredibly satisfying to use, it had a lot of good perks like shoot to loot and the intrinsic being very strong for dealing with groups of ads because it was basically just aimbot with the ricochets, and over time the more I used it, it seriously cemented itself as a permanent fixture in my arsenal. So I thought, with this weapon being one of my favorites, how do I take this alongside primary weapon buffs which happened in Monument of Triumph into a build, make it the centerpiece, and also bring in the best parts of Prismatic Titan to make an overall perfect forever Prismatic Titan build that I can enjoy until the end of time, that provides the best parts of everything, satisfying gunplay, extremely powerful abilities, and everything in between. Which of course, when talking about Prismatic Titan, is going to be your Consecration Titan. There is nothing that is better than Consecration Slam even to this very day. It is still by far the most solid and most reliable Prismatic Titan setup. So taking it from the top, we are going to begin with our exotic of choice. And now this is a bit of a weird choice at first glance because we are taking the Actium Warrig, and it has the main trait Autoloading Link. It states steadily reloads a portion of your equipped auto rifle or machine gun's magazine from reserves, which is good quality of life. Secondly, final blows with auto rifles or machine guns boost their stability, ammo generation, and damage. So the way this works is that it's based off a stack system. So getting kills will improve the stacks of the buff that you get, and it stacks up to 10 times, and the stacks themselves fall off one by one. So as you can see, if I get a single kill on this Scion, I have one stack of auto-loading Link on the left of my screen. Again, if I get another kill, I get another stack, and this goes up to 10 times, like I said just at the beginning. And at 10 stacks of the buff, you get not only plus 50 ammo generation, which by the way, the ammo generation stat of Khvostov, if I hide my camera over here, is 54. So at maximum stacks, you are going to have 100 ammo generation, which is great for spawning plenty of ammo for both yourself and your team. And at the maximum of 10 stacks, you are also dealing plus 15% auto rifle damage. Now, granted, that final stack only lasts for around a second or so, but you get to keep the majority of the buff up at all times because it goes down stack by stack and not all at once. As you can see, I still have it on my screen as I've been yapping about how it works to you. So it's very good for keeping up your auto rifle damage, ammo economy, everything. It's pretty solid. And I know this exotic is not what you would expect from a Prismatic Titan build, but the truth is that you don't need exotics like Synthos or Worm Gods or things like the exotic class item that has Inmo Syntho on it, for example. You don't actually need those because over time, ever since the release of Prismatic and Prismatic Titan in particular, Consecration, as in the build that we are using today, has been nerfed heavily multiple times. Compare Consecration now to how it was back in the day, it is drastically different to what it used to be. The ignitions no longer scale with melee damage scalars such as Syntheseps. The ignitions themselves have been standardized. You cannot boost the damage of them by anything else. They lost their intrinsic damage they used to have because if you didn't know this, Consecration ignitions used to just do like 20% more damage compared to any other ignition in the game. They took that away. So basically all it's good for now is clearing low-level trash mobs in a group, but it has kept one of the most important aspects of Consecration, and that is that the ignitions can spread to multiple targets. So if I ignite 2 enemy enemies at a time. They will both cause ignitions, and the damage of both ignitions will apply to both enemies. And if you have 3 enemies, it's 3 ignitions. If you have 4, then it's 4, then 5, then it's 5, so on and so on. You kind of get the idea. So consecration itself is still very good, and it doesn't actually need the help of all of these other exotics because they don't affect it as much as they used to. So that is why being able to use something like Actium Warrig is fine, because we can get away with it. It's not really a damage loss if we're not using Synthos or whatever. And I think it works very well with Kvostov, and especially because this is a centerpiece of the build, it just makes sense to be placed here. So now talking more broadly about our subclass, we are taking the Thunder Crash Super because this is going to be very widely applicable for any boss fights we are taking this build into in raids or dungeons. Thunder Crash is your best offensive super for the Titan. Taking Thruster for the class ability. Obviously, we're going to want Frenzied Blade because we get 3 charges of this, so we are going to be able to use Consecration 3 times. I like the Shackle Grenade personally because it allows me to stun unstoppable champions, plus it also is great for generating dark energy. You can stun unstops now, thank God, with Glacier Grenades. Once again, you were not able to do this for what felt like a year. I think it was around a year, but Bungie reverted that change. So if you prefer Glacier Grenade, then please do be my guest, because basically the Shackle Grenade and Glacier Grenade, they're kind of the same thing. It's just pick your poison. I have personally always preferred the Shackle Grenade. Then for the aspects, because this is the classic Consecration Prismatic Titan loop, we are going with Consecration. This is the melee uppercut and slam down slide, which you can use to devastate big groups of ads with the ignition splashes. Then we have Knockout. This is going to be our main healing aspect. Getting melee kills, aka Consecration kills, is number 1, going to make us amplified, and number 2, heal us. So it's great for giving us damage resistance, 15% from amplified, and the healing is also quite nice, noticeable in a pinch. Works on unpowered melees too. There is no better pairing for staying alive on Prismatic Titan and causing as much chaos as possible than Consecration and Knockout. Fragments wise, the only 2 essential ones that you need to make a Consecration spam build work are Facet of Protection. This is going to provide a plus 15% damage resistance when you are surrounded. This goes even higher when you are Transcendent. And then Facet of Courage, I like this because it improves your Arc, Solar, and Void ability damage versus Darkness debuff targets. So this is just there for making your Thunder Crash hit 10% harder during a boss fight. Then the last 2 fragments are kind of flex slots. I like to use Facet of Ruin here because it gives plus 10 weapon stat, which is actually allowing me to get to 200 weapons, but we'll get to that in just a moment. And it also increases the size of ignitions that you cause. Not terribly noticeable, but like I said, the main reason I'm taking this is for the weapon stat. Lastly, Facet of Grace. This is actually a very important fragment. It states defeating targets with kinetic weapons grants you bonus Transcendence energy. Because a big centerpiece of this build is the Kvostov, which is a kinetic weapon, we are going to be getting a lot of bonus Transcendence energy. In fact, when paired with our artifact, we are basically going to be able to spam our Transcendence once every 20 seconds if you set up everything correctly, and there are enough ads to get the build rolling. But we will get to that. Just know that having Kvostov paired with Facet of Grace, they work so well together. And by the way, a big reason for that is because the actual ricochets from Kvostov, they chunk the Transcendence meters incredibly hard. I don't know why this is, but it's just how the gun works. Whenever you get those ricochets to trigger, they will give you a lot of Transcendence energy for both types because it is kinetic, and having Facet of Grace is only going to amplify that even more. Now, let's go a little deeper into the weapons with, of course, the Kvostov. It has the main trait, the right choice. Every 7th bullet from this weapon ricochets to nearby targets. That is going to improve the damage of the weapon. It's going to be very good for ad clear or crowd control in general because it's going to hit a bunch of enemies at the same time. Plus, like I mentioned, it'll give you a big bump to your Transcendence energy. We also have Shoot Loot on here, which is going to be very important for some artifact perk interactions later and with our armor mods. Basically, any orb that you create, you're going to see it throughout most of the gameplay in today's video. I am trying to shoot to loot them from a distance because it's just very beneficial rather than walking over there. Very good perk to have on any weapon, to be honest. It also has the secondary trait Eyes Up Guardian. Collecting orbs of power strengthens this weapon's next several ricochet shots, providing more damage and more bounces, so it improves the weapon even more. And then now, with the Monument of Triumph update, we have got the Catalyst of Dreams for this weapon, Attrition Orbs. Dealing sustained damage creates an orb of power. This is such a perfect catalyst for Kvostov, and it is actually what I requested in the exotics that had missing catalyst video, which I created, I think about a year ago now. I said that Kvostov should get Attrition Orbs, and to finally see it actually have it is very, very nice and very satisfying. If you don't have this catalyst, it basically just works as you'd expect. You get a ton more orbs with this weapon, and because it is based solely around orbs and playing around them, it just works to the weapon's strength so very well. And we're going to talk about what we are doing with all of those orbs we are making in just a moment, but first of all, I want to talk about our stats and our armor set bonuses because they are going to help buff our Kvostov even more and give us some damage resistance. So for starters, let's go with stats. I am going with 200 weapon stat because at this level, we are going to be dealing plus 15% damage in PvE versus all enemy types, so we are buffing the damage of all of our weapons by 15%, including Kvostov, and at this level as well, every ammo brick that we create is guaranteed to be enhanced, which for special weapons is going to make the bricks double sized, and for heavies, I believe it's around a 33% size increase for the ammo that you get, but it's mainly there for the special weapons, so with 200 weapons, we will have better damage on our Kvostov and infinite ammo for our special weapon of choice, which will be a rocket pulse, or you can make this whatever you like. I just like to pair a rocket pulse with this because it's unstop stun, whereas Kvostov is actually barrier, which if you didn't know, most high fire rate auto rifles are actually overload, but Kvostov is barrier here, which is actually a really nice choice, works very well for the weapon. And then for the rest of the stats, I've gone for 100 super to make it so it recharges the fastest and I get the maximum amount of energy from any chunk gain sources that we have. Then the rest has gone into abilities, absolutely 0 health, then I have 80 melee, 70 grenade, and 70 class. Very clean distribution, if I do say so myself. And in terms of the pieces that allowed me to get this distribution, my class item is Powerhouse with a tertiary stat in melee and tuning in weapons. My boots are Powerhouse with a tertiary stat in class and a tuning in weapons. My Actium War Rig is Gunner with a tertiary stat in melee and tuning in class. My gauntlets are Powerhouse, again with a tertiary stat in grenade and actually a tuning in health, so this could be even better. Then my helmet is Specialist with a tertiary stat in super with a tuning in melee. So with that out of the way, now let's discuss the set bonuses that we have going for this build and how it is improving the overall loop. First of all, we are taking the 2-piece Iron Battalion set. This is the new armor set that you can get from Iron Banner. Now, unfortunately, you can only farm for this armor set once every 4 weeks because that is how the cadence of Iron Banner works now. So if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world, but the 2-piece primary honing states increases handling and reload speed for primary ammo weapons. Primary ammo weapons gain increased damage against non-boss combatants based on your weapon stat. And at 200 weapon stat, this is actually an additional 12% damage versus non-boss combatants. And that stacks multiplicatively with the 15% that you already get from 200 weapons. So when you put them together, it is around a 29% increase to your primary weapon damage, which is more than what you would have before. So we are taking that 2-piece purely for damage purposes. And then secondly, I like to pair this with a damage resistance 2-piece. And in this case, we are taking the 2-piece from the Salvation's Edge raid. This perk, Stable Resonance, states defeating a powerful combatant generates stable resonance, which grants damage resistance and increased weapon damage for the duration. So it's giving us not only damage resistance, but weapon damage too. So it kind of double dips. It's not a huge amount of additional damage. It's only 7% weapon damage, which is better than nothing. And the resist amount is equivalent to resist times 2, which is a 25% damage resistance. And this is actually lasting for 12 seconds, which is actually quite a good duration. And it is refreshable. And by the way, this is triggered on orange bars or above. As you can see here, all I need to do is get a kill on an orange bar, and then it gives me stable resonance and resist times 2 on the left of my screen for those 12 seconds. And that's as simple as it gets. If you are in any sort of higher level content, there are bound to be plenty of orange bars for you to trigger this set bonus on repeatedly. You'll only not be triggering it in the easiest types of content, but at that level, you're just going to be killing everything before it even has a chance to scratch you. So I wouldn't really worry. It works in all levels of the game, and especially with how much we are going to be buffing our Kvostov, very easy to trigger with said weapon as well. You can run some alternatives to the Iron Banner set bonus if you do not have it, or if you just don't like PvP, and with the dwindling state of PvP, you don't want to go in there. I totally understand that, by the way. If you don't want to use this, it's not the end of the world because it is only a 12% damage increase over everything else that we have. So some alternatives are actually the 2-piece set from Vesper's Host. This one is going to make it so you deal 15% additional primary ammo weapon damage to targets that are disoriented. Now, that includes disorient from sources like the disorienting grenades from blinding grenade launchers, like from back in the day. Everybody remember the ignition code? Of course, that's in the same slot as Kvostov, but if you had something like a truth teller in your vault, which has disorienting grenades, chuck that into a big group of ads and then shoot them with Kvostov, it's going to be dealing 15% more damage, which is quite solid. And the second alternative is Smoke Jumper. You could double up on Salvation's Edge and Smoke Jumper, giving you a bunch of damage resistance, which I believe for Smoke Jumper is now an average of around 30% over a 3-second time period. With how many orbs we are making with Kvostov and everything else in the build, because it has attrition orbs, we are going to be able to take advantage of Smoke Jumper a lot more often than we would in different builds. So that option is there if you don't want to farm Iron Banner. Okay, so now we are getting into the artifact, and it is here where we basically put everything together and finalize everything and make sure our auto rifle, or Kvostov in this case, is doing the most damage possible. Starting with the tier 3 mods, the first one we have is Shield Crush. This one states that while you are amplified or radiant, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. Great for getting our shackled grenade back faster. Second, we are taking Transference. This mod is very good for keeping your Transcendence uptime. It states gain increased grenade and melee damage while Transcendent, which is really nice. And then secondly, weapon final blows while Transcendent refund light and dark energy after Transcendence ends. So what I'm going to do here is get a bunch of kills while in Transcendence, and this is around 14 or so kills with the amount of enemies that the firing range has presented to us, and then I'll rejoin you in just a second when my Transcendence runs out. So now that my Transcendence is about to run out, as you can see, I get 50% of each of my light and dark meters back. Suffice it to say, this is a very good mod for upkeeping your Transcendence, because now it takes half as much time to get back to your next Transcendence, and chances are you are going to get 12 kills again, which by the way, it is 12 kills to get the maximum percentage return. Very easy to trigger, especially with the amount of damage that we are doing with our Kvostov. Great mod to bolster this build. Moving into the tier 2 mods, the next one we have is Sustained Fire. This one states continuously damaging combatants or healing allies with an auto rifle grants you damage resistance. And this is actually also equivalent to resist times 2. All you need to do is score around 10 hits with an auto rifle, which is very easy to do, and it will give you resist times 2 for around 6 seconds, which as a reminder is a 25% damage resistance. So we've got plenty of good damage resist covered. Then we have Targeting Autoloader. This is another auto rifle damage increase. While you have an auto rifle equipped, defeating combatants reloads your equipped weapon and temporarily increases weapon damage. By the way, this is equivalent to a maximum 20% increase in auto rifle damage. So again, piling on the buffs that we already have to boost the hell out of our Kvostov. It also says that it awards bonus progress when dealing final blows while surrounded. That doesn't really matter, it's just a nice added bonus. And after that, we are taking Radiant Orbs. While you have a solar or prismatic subclass equipped, picking up an Orb of Power makes you radiant, which is a 20% damage increase. Very easy to activate this perk by shoot looting all of the orbs that we create with Kvostov, which by the way is a lot because of the catalyst. And then finally, the 2 tier 1 mods are just quality of life. We have Elemental Siphon. Rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super create an elemental pickup that matches your equipped super, which in this case is going to be Ionic Traces whenever we get multi-kills with Kvostov, and those traces are going to give us a little bit of ability energy back, which is nice. Then finally, Energy Diffusion Substrate. Gain a small amount of damage resistance to all damage dealt to you by combatants. This is around 5%, so it's just a bit of extra survivability. Might as well take it, why not? So skipping ahead a little bit here, spoilers for the mod section, we are also taking 2 copies of Kinetic Surge, which is going to improve our Kvostov damage even further by 17%. So if you put everything together, if you take 200 weapons, which is 15%, Iron Banner set bonus, which is 12%, Radiant, which is 20%, Targeting Autoloader, 20%, Stable Resonance from the set bonus, 7%, Transcendence, an additional 5%, Actium War Rig, an additional 15%, 2x Kinetic Surge, 17%. If you put all of that together, we have a 2.8x damage increase to our Kvostov, almost triple the damage for just literally shooting the weapon. There is not too much additional work you need to do to be able to get this maximum bonus rolling. A lot of it comes from just firing the weapon and getting kills. The only more involved parts are collecting orbs, but when you do that, you are activating Radiant Orbs, and you are also activating your Kinetic Surges at the exact same time. Kill an orange bar, you also activate Stable Resonance, and if you're Transcendent at the same time, you are getting even more damage, 5% to be exact. So when it all comes together, it's just a very fun gameplay loop of just shooting Kvostov, dealing a ton of extra damage, seriously satisfying gunplay that you are massively rewarded for. And on top of that, you have all of the classic Prismatic Titan staples, Consecration, Knockout, plenty of survivability, good crowd control whenever Kvostov isn't quite cutting it, say a massive group for example, and you're just off to the races. It works so well, it combines everything that I like about Prismatic Titan under one hood. So let's quickly finish up by talking about the rest of our armor mod selection. For the helmet, I am taking 1 heavy ammo finder, 1 special ammo finder, and Kinetic Siphon so that multi-kills with Kvostov make even more orbs. For the gloves, I have 1 copy of heavy-handed so that melee kills additionally spawn orbs of power, 1 focusing strike so that I get some thruster energy from melee damage, then a kinetic loader to make my Kvostov feel even more snappy, general resist mods for the chest piece. Then for the boots, I have stacks on stacks so that every time I collect an orb, I get 2 armor charges instead of 1. Great for extending the duration of both of our kinetic surges, which I am also taking on our boots. Reminder that that is a 17% damage increase. Then finally for the class item, I have a class font to give me even more class stats, time dilation to improve the duration of said font and our surges, then powerful attraction so that whenever I thruster, I collect any nearby orbs. Now, as far as the optimal gameplay loop for this build is concerned, it is literally just shoot Kvostov and win. It doesn't get better than that. It is just Destiny at its core, the quintessential looter shooter, shooting your gun, a very satisfying one at that, and just having a ton of fun in the process. If you come across any tougher enemies or massive groups of ads that you can't quickly dispatch with Kvostov as fast as you would like, you do have the option to lean into your Prismatic Titan abilities like Consecration, Thunder Crash, etc, etc. Basically, what I would encourage you to do is every time you get your Transcendence, just activate it, because it's going to be so easy to get back pack, especially with the artifact selections that we have. Everything works so well together, and I really hope that you put this build together and enjoy using it as much as I do. Anyway, the fashion for the build is on screen here. I've got the classic LARP Brave Titan set, and as always, the dim link for the build is going to be in the description box down below for you to copy hassle-free. But that has brought us to the end of the video, so I really hope you enjoy the build and consider giving it a try, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewers.